Hey, Adam here. Today I'm going to show you how to center stuff in CSS and why. Because many online tutorials just shows you how to do it or give you the snippets like Stack Overflow answers, and you then don't know why it doesn't work for you. So in this example here, I have this is the very first example, is the most stupid way, and we are going to center the purple box inside this white box, which is a div inside the main element, using the absolute values in margin. Since the div is the block element, we can simply say margin auto, and it would center it thanks to the margin properties of occupying the space evenly on the left and the right. And if you would want to center it vertically, then we would have to calculate the exact measurements. So since the parent is 400 pixels tall and the div is 50, we can simply set a half of that as a top and a bottom margin in the margin shorthand. So we can say calc, and we can even calculate the differences. So we can say 400 pixels minus 50 pixels divided by 2, and then we would get it here. The problem with it is obviously that if you change any of those, it would get off. But this is the most stupid way to center the block element inside another element using margin, and benefiting from it occupying the both left and the right side evenly. If you know the dimensions and don't want to use the exact values and spacing it with the margin, you can use the position property, given the parent having set the position as well. So if the main or the parent has some sort of a position assigned, because the default position value is static, so if it has position relative, absolute, or any other, you can then position absolutely the div inside it. So if you say position absolute, then we can stretch it on both of the sides. So if you say top left 0, right 0, and bottom 0, if I would untick the width and height specifications, it would get stretched to occupy the whole parent, because we would stretch it with the absolute values. But since we have the dimensions and they override this stretching, then we can say margin auto, and it would magically get to the center, because from the previous example we used margin auto to get it from on the x-axis horizontally, but now as we have sort of created the canvas using the absolute from top, left, bottom, and right, then we, using the margin auto, we will position it in evenly on all four sides. So this is using margin auto with position absolute and all four coordinates set to 0. Now the third example uses position absolute with combination with CSS3 transform. So this is the main. Again, the main is already set to position relative in all the examples here, so we can simply, now we are already in the unknown dimensions section of the tutorial. So if you simply put a position absolute and put it in the middle using top and left, then it would start in the very center of the parent, which is here. This is top left corner of the purple box, but then we need to get it back to the center position within itself. So we need to get this purple box 50% of its width to the left and 50% of its height to the top. We can say that in a margin and calculate it absolutely. So we can say margin top be minus, what is it, 25 pixels, and margin left be 150. No, miscalculated. Or we can simply use a transform property with translate and a shorthand for x and y axis in a same writing. So it's just 50% back on the horizontal and minus 50% on a vertical. And those 50% are calculated from its own box model, so its own dimensions. So we now get to the center using position absolute and top and left coordinates, and then manipulating it to the center of the box itself, positioning the element into the negative values on both sides. This can get handy if you can use the position absolute in your code for the child. If you don't want to use position absolute, or you're already using flex in your system, you can benefit from its default values. So if you put display flex on a parent, then if you take those little boxes around some of the properties, some of the modern properties, you can get the visualization of such property. So if you scroll back to this transform, I'm using Mozilla Firefox. If you hover over the translate value here, does it work? No, it doesn't work. Oh man. Yeah, I need to untick the flex here. Yeah. So the default behavior of child elements to a flex element parent is to it basically getting flexed. So I now have the parent set to display flex, and if I would put margin auto on the child here, it would then get spaced evenly on all four sides. Now this is a native property of display flex element, and if I would add another child here, it would get centered as well right next to it. So if I would just simply duplicate it, we would get this behavior. Now this is centered in alignment with this being centered, and both of them are centered compared to each other. Now you can also skip the margin part, because in your code base you might not want to set margin auto on the child, or you might have many other child elements. You can simply figure it out on the parent only. So here on the main, I can say display flex and align it on the horizontal axis, and using align items on the vertical ones. And the same can be achieved with display grid. Now display grid has coincidentally the same values for centering on both axes, but if we say display grid on the parent, then it would get stretched, it would occupy all the space of a parent by default. We can obviously align it the same way we use in flex, or you can use rule of a place items center. Now this is a shorthand for center, and it might work for you in your environment. So that's it. You can ask questions in a comment, or you can ask me on a mail in a description, and see you on the next CSS or HTML video.